Welcome back to Show and Tell. I'm Billie and I'm coming to you from New York. Summer is wrapping up and I finished this 1935 holiday jumper just in time to maybe wear it once before the weather gets too chilly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this sweater. Let me turn around and show you the back. This little detail right here. So I did this sweater with a group of other people as a knit along. If you missed us, I have recorded each of the sessions so that you can get them on YouTube. They are behind a paywall. See instructions in the show notes of how to sign up for that. There's so many twists and turns with this sweater. Let me start by breaking it down. So there's two parts to the collar. You begin with ribbing and then stockinette, and then separately you knit another band of ribbing that you attach. You're supposed to have enough to tie them in the back. I did not. I kind of fudged that. I stretched a little. I pulled back some of this band of ribbing to give myself just enough to make a little extra tab there, and then I stitched it in place. That's two parts of the collar. Two sleeves, obviously, a front and a back. What's unique, very unique about this sweater is that the front has a different dimension and different shape than the back. So you cast on more stitches for the front. When it came to setting in the sleeves, which are raglan, some of us had a different idea about how the sleeves should go in. I ended up kind of fudging it. I made a little model here. I might be able to work in another little clip of video to show you, but here was the back. Here's the front, wider. You can see this little crimp here. That is the extra bit that sticks out beyond where the back would be. So you have like a little bit extra hanging over. And I would say that amounted to maybe a ½ inch on either side. Setting in the sleeves, the sleeve is completely symmetrical. The left and the right are identical. So how is that going to work when you have bind off stitches here that don't match any bind off stitches here, and there's no bind off stitches in the back like normally you would have under the underarm? So I figured out my own way of inserting that, and I can show you. May not be polite to show you my underarm, but the seam of this underarm doesn't exactly line up with the seam of the body, but it's such a slight difference, it's really imperceptible. It kind of gives you a mini gusset, like almost in lieu of a bust dart. It gives you a little bit of extra space for the bust that you don't need on the back. So I thought that was kind of clever. When I saw how one of the other women inserted her sleeve, I was like, whoa, why didn't I think of that? It sort of makes me want to do the sweater again in a different yarn, different color, maybe not two-tone. I want to try her sleeve construction. It looks so interesting. I mean, not her sleeve construction, but the way she inserted the sleeve into the body, different from what I did. The tie in the front, I didn't really have enough to tie it into a knot, so I stitched this in place. I'm completely thrilled with how this sweater fits. This is all ribbing, not wool. Andrea Fruity Knitting really complained about using this yarn, the Pasquale Arctic Pearl, it's seacell, that it was really stretchy. Well, the good news on this pattern is I used a very tight tension for the stocking stitch on the collar. The whole rest of the sweater is ribbing broken by these horizontal bands. So I think the ribbing pulls it in and keeps it in place and maybe keeps it from stretching. I love how it fits. The sweater does have negative ease, which keeps it hugging in. So I'm hoping that this is not going to stretch out. I did not wet block it. I haven't blocked it at all. I didn't need to. That's what Deborah Newton said in the class I took with her last year at Vogue Knitting. She doesn't block anything. She knits it to be right. I don't know if that works for all yarns, but maybe the yarn she's working with, I don't know. Anyway, the sleeve is a raglan construction. You can see my seam there. And I left a little notch on the side. I didn't do this lower portion of the ribbing on the smaller needle size. The sweater's really meant to be hugging in at the waist, and mine doesn't. So I just left that. I thought it still gave it like a little bit of a nautical look. I shot a little clip of me trying to figure out the assembly of this, so I'll insert that here. From what I can tell, this is going together like a jigsaw puzzle. This stripe has to match up. This stripe has to match up. If this goes here, then this piece is going to come here. So that's a little unconventional construction for a sleeve to fit in like that, instead of just ending here. It extends. I don't know how that's going to look under the arm, and I'm not sure. This is the back. This is the front. These are the two sleeves. I'm not sure how this is going to all work when it's assembled. This is the V-neck. So this is a little tricky. It was even hard for me to figure out, but hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. This is the back of the sweater on this side. This is the front side. The front was knit differently than the back. It has kind of like a built-in gusset, like imagine a little triangle right here, knit right into the fabric. The cast one of the front was more stitches than for the back. And it wasn't until you get to the underarm of the front that you bind off these 6 stitches, and then you start decreasing up towards the shoulder. The back, however, doesn't have that 6-stitch bind off before decreasing. It just goes right from the underarm, immediately decreasing. So there's an extra little bit of fabric right in here. This is the seam where I've connected the front to the back by mattress stitch. I put the needle there so that you could see, pretty clear view of it. But when it gets to here, there's a little ledge here that goes straight across. So the sleeve will not be connected from this edge. The center seam of the sleeve, I believe, is going to be in the center of this. So this whole thing is the arm side. Instead of what typically happens, which is the side seam of the front and back continues into the side seam of the sleeve, in this, I believe the side seam of the sleeve is going to be centered in this little 6-stitch bind off. And I think what that does is it just gives you almost like a little, like a mini bust dart or like a little gusset. It allows you to have a little more fabric going towards the bust as opposed to the back. This is how much yarn I have left. Not so much white was used, so this is almost, I would say maybe 80% of the ball. And you might remember I went back to the store and I bought an extra ball of blue thinking that I wouldn't need the whole ball, I might only need a little bit of it, but I didn't want to get caught again with struggling to find the same dye lot. And I thought the dye lot here might be really important. So I went ahead and I bought a 5th ball of blue when it seemed like 4 balls of blue was going to be enough, like 5 balls in toto. But I'm glad that I bought the 5th ball of blue because I used quite a bit of it. I would say more than half. Now, my friend Michelle Mark told me that she has a pattern for a little sailor hat that she's gonna send me. So I might have enough to do the hat. I haven't seen the hat yet. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like it because she has impeccable taste. But at least I have this little bit in reserve, in stash, I know, so that I can do that. As I was sewing the sweater up, of course, my mind wandered to, what am I going to knit next? Because, you know, as soon as I bind something off, I want to be casting on immediately, if not sooner. So in the last episode, I showed you that I was rummaging through my bin of stash and I pulled out these things and this stuff, plus some more things that are, you know, in the background. I probably have too many options, but I did start to cast on a sweater that looks like this. It has vertical stripes. Very interesting construction. It starts in the center and goes around to the center back. And then on the other side, you start here and go around to the center back. Well, I would love to have a sweater with vertical stripes. Usually stripes are horizontal. And I think that would be slenderizing and great. But of course, I'm operating with all different yarns, slightly different weights. So I tinkered around to try and select the yarns that I could knit on the same needle and get something that wasn't too wonky. In the beginning, I was using a single strand of the white Cascade Heritage, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna rip this out, and when I redo it, I'm not gonna use a single strand. I found that double strand gives me a thickness that's more in keeping with the other yarns that I'm using. The reason I intend to rip this out is I think this is too long for the front of my body. The model is wearing the sweater belted at the waist, which I don't know if I'm gonna do. I just think this is too long for me. It shouldn't be any problem to cut out some of these pattern repeats. It's pretty straight knitting. You know, it's either stockinette or garter stitch, but I can eliminate like maybe 3 of these and keep everything else the same. What's so fascinating about this, which revealed itself when I started to knit the sleeve, I broke away from knitting the front, number one, because I saw it look too long, but mainly because I wanted to try and understand, get a grasp of how the sleeve is constructed. So just like the last sweater, the sleeve construction is interesting and different. This straight edge where all the strands are hanging down is the bottom of the sleeve. This part. This is going to go into the underarm. It too is a raglan construction. So this is going to come up. That's going to just come all the way up to the neckline where there's a collar. And this continues. I'm halfway through this sleeve. This will continue down the back to meet this under the arm. Now, these stripes are designed to miter perfectly with the stripes on the shoulder. So all the way across, these are going to line up with their counterparts up here. For those of you who like to plan ahead, I am contemplating my next knit along, probably starting in January, maybe, I don't know. Let me know if you'd rather do it as a Christmas cast on or New Year's cast on, somewhere around in there, because I think I'll be done this current sweater, the gray, black, and white, and hopefully I'll get back to finishing up the black cardigan. And for the rink or the lengths, it just keeps being pushed further and further back. I love that sweater. I really do want to be able to wear it. But I also want to start knitting with whatever yarn I buy in Paris. So here is the sweater for the next knit along. I put it here for you to see. And I will put a link in the show notes of how you can go about signing up for that knit along too. Just to help you decide if this pattern is for you. The pattern is written for a 35-inch bust using some antique yarn that probably no longer exists, that gave a gauge of 7 stitches to the inch. Now, I just figured out for myself, if I go to a slightly thicker yarn to get a gauge of 6 stitches to the inch, I won't even have to adjust the stitch count to give me the size bust that I need. We talk about all of that kind of stuff in the first session of the knit along. So you don't have to come to the first session prepared with your yarn. We'll be talking about it, but just so you know that it's in that range. If you have a very large bust and you really need to alter the stitch count, we can certainly talk about that. We often do. I am going to try and shop for yarn when I'm in Paris for that project. I would love to hear from you, since I haven't bought the yarn yet, what color you think I should be knitting that sweater in. If you've been following my podcast for a while, you know the colors that I typically knit with. Maybe I want to go outside of that range, try something new. Maybe have thought of a color that you think would look smashing on me. Let me hear from you, because I can still tailor what I'm going to do based on your input. So we've touched on finished object, work in progress, upcoming works. No acquisitions this time, but there will be acquisitions once I get to France. So if this is my front, and those are the little 6 stitches that were bound off, and this is my back that didn't have the 6 stitches, and the front is wider than the back. You can sort of see that, right?
Yep.
I decided that this was an extra 3 stitches difference. So it's going to be a little hard to explain. I made my sleeve, start yeah, if I sewed them together, I, stitched up this edge of the sleeve. This part I put at the 3-inch mark. So the center of this, which I thought, was the seam, went into the center of this. So 3 stitches out from the shoulder part. So that there were like 3 stitches borrowed from the front, 3 stitches borrowed from the 6 stitches of the front to wrap around onto the back, which meant that this underarm seam did not line up with the side seam of the sweater. Now, if you couldn't get it from that, I also did a little drawing, which might be clear. Here's my front. Here's my back. That's the 6 stitch bind off right in there. And then I put the sleeve in there, but 3 stitches. Let me do this in another color. So I did 3 of those 6 stitches to match up with the center of this. And then I did the other 3 to match up with half of that. So the side seam of my sweater is over here. Right? Where the front and the back are connecting. But the seam of the sleeve is here. But it's not so obvious. I mean, I'll show you my armpit. I don't know. Can you see that?
Yep.
So it's not really like a big stretch, but it does create sort of a little mini gusset, a teeny sliver that gives you a little bit extra on the front. I think that was their intent. But Janice, I really like your idea, and I have a feeling that you're right and I'm wrong. I just have a feeling. Boy, I would like to do it over.
Maybe knitting up
No,
one.
it looks lovely the way it is.
It does,
That's
really.
a lot of work to.
Well, no, I wouldn't take my whole sweater apart. I would do like another sweater.
Another
Maybe, I mean,
one.
I've never knit the same sweater twice, but maybe because this is really summery and this fabric is definitely summery. And by the way, let me stand up to show you. It's not like ballooning, stretching. I didn't wet block it. I didn't block it at all. I don't feel I needed to.
Oh, it's
But
beautiful.
it's not like stretching out a lot. And if it grows a little, okay. I didn't do like a total knot, but I folded it over like they did, and I kind of stitched this because I knew it would just come out. And in the back, I didn't have, I don't know if I'll be able to be far enough away. Can you see that? I'm going to get myself outside. It's still a beautiful day, and maybe try and get some pictures of this. on the street in New York. Hope you're all enjoying the last vestiges of summer. I know some of you are in the southern hemisphere and it's a totally different climate for you. Eat your hearts out. It'll be hot for you again before you know it. Take care, everybody. Oh, and bon voyage to my friend Sabina, who was off to the southern hemisphere, I think, as we speak. Have a safe trip. Ta-ta, y'all. Toodaloo.